What's going on, guys? Zane here with Everything Vive. Want to welcome you back for another episode. I am joined, as usual, by Ronnie. Ronnie, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
Doing good. How was your weekend? I know you were out of town for a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. We were watching some basketball tournament stuff for college basketball, so that was a lot of fun. And then got a chance to play a little bit of the new Zelda game. That was also a lot of fun. Saw family, all that kind of thing. So yeah, it was a good weekend.
Very cool. Oh man, March Madness is coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's next week. Next Sunday is Selection Sunday.
Oh boy, okay.
And then after that, I think Thursday is when the game starts. So.
I gotta get my bracket going. I wonder if there'll be any games streamed in VR, just like you've seen for NFL, NBA, and all that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. I wonder. I'll have to look into that. But yeah.
Okay. That's a tangent. We'll look into it and hopefully have something for you guys by next week. Because to watch, what is it, like 65 games in virtual reality? That'd be amazing.
That would be really cool.
All right, so let's get down to business. First things first, we were running a giveaway last week for a Smashbox Arena key, and I just want to go ahead and announce the winner up front here at the beginning of the show, and that is Chris Barnes, or at least the YouTube channel for Chris Barnes. Make sure you shoot us a message on the back end of our channel so that we can send that to you, or at least get your contact info, or whatever the case might be. We just want to get that key to you so you can get in and start playing some Smashbox. But with that, let's jump into news first. You ready, Ronnie?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so we are looking at a new player in the game. This is a big one. LG is coming out, and they worked with Valve on a headset, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty comparable to what is available in terms of spec-wise for both, the Vive and the Rift. And now there's no date given yet. There's no price given yet. But I mean, LG, they're a pretty reputable company. And the trials or the early reviews that are coming back are saying that this is very similar to the Vive. One of the features that it has that I guess none of the other headsets have is this kind of flip up feature that you can use. So you don't have to take the headset off. I know that there was a lot of hoopla about that. But in terms of resolution, in terms of just everything, it seems like it's going to be comparable to the Vive, and I guess I'm just curious
actually,
now. Yeah, well, so go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say. So my understanding is it's actually a bit higher resolution, not crazy or anything, but a little higher, and
which is something you'd expect coming a year later, right?
Yeah, exactly, and it uses OLED. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure the Vive uses OLEDs as well, but slightly higher resolution. I think one of the things that I noticed that kind of caught my eye is that it uses different types of lenses. They're not what are they? The Fresnel lenses. It's actually a kind of like refraction. I don't know. I know it's not the Fresnel lenses, which are the ones that are currently used in the consumer versions of the Vive and the Rift. And those are kind of the lenses with all of the little concentric rings that go in and out on the lenses.
Gotcha.
So these don't have that, which like one of the early Oculus dev kits I had didn't have it as well. And I actually I like the lenses without those rings because it tends to reflect a little bit less, like on light environments and stuff. But anyway, so that was something that I noticed that I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. But yeah, like you were saying, otherwise it looks like it's basically taking, if you can consider the Vive almost like a reference, version of the Steam VR and Valve's, Lighthouse tracking system. This is basically, a slightly modified version of that. It's not too different. It's really they claim that the controllers are a tiny bit more accurate, but I don't really know that that's necessarily. Without being hands-on, we don't know for sure. But they basically look identical. Everything's using the same. The sensors on the headset are less pronounced. It looks a little bit more sleek in that regard. And like you were saying before, I think one of the nicest things is just that its mounting system sounds a lot better than the original Vive, but that's not really a super big issue considering that we're going to have the the premium head strap coming out soon.
Well, can you flip up on the head?
I'm trying to remember if you can or not. I'm not.
I don't think that was one of the features on it.
Maybe not, but I mean, still flipping up would be nice, obviously, but like it also has the I was just hearing in terms of comfort and all of that, the fact that it distributes the weight around the band, and it has the circular kind of adjuster on the back, similar to the PlayStation VR. That's going to be incorporated into the premium headset, so I feel like this takes cues from that, maybe adds a little bit to it, but it sounds similar to the premium head strap. Let's just put it that way. So
gotcha. Okay, yeah. I did read that it wasn't as comfortable as that premium head strap.
Okay, so, I didn't see anyone
and this was just off. I think The Verge was doing, or TheVerge.com was doing a quick review.
Yeah, and they usually have good. Yeah, I usually like their VR articles, so that's pretty cool. So that's good to know. Another thing that I noted when looking at it was that it, rather than using the 3 cables directly from the headset, it looks like it uses a single USB 3 Type-C plug rather than having the multiple. So basically, what that allows you to do, kind of similar to like a lightning cable or something, is that one cable comes off of the headset. It plugs into the little hub or whatever, the similar to how the Vive works.
There's like the little hub or
my
transport,
brain is pausing for a second here, but it's basically, the nice thing is one cable over to the hub, and then the hub then breaks out into the 3 that goes to your computer.
I mean, isn't that similar to like that new 3-in-1 cable that's coming with the Vive?
Yeah, it is, but I would imagine,
which I don't have, because I got my Vive I guess earlier than when that came out.
But this is different in that, like, and again, I don't have firsthand knowledge of it. Like, I haven't actually messed around with either of the cords myself. But my understanding is even the 3-in-1 cable, I mean, it's still basically all of those things into one cable. Like, it's still, like, my understanding is the original 3-in-1 cable is essentially, still an HDMI cord, a USB cord, and a power cord that runs through like, it's just basically one cable, but they're all just like wrapped up in there in one cable, right? Well, this is different in that literally the headset just has one connector on it. It doesn't have 3 separate, like it's not outputting all of those things individually. It's literally just outputting all of those to one single USB, like a special USB type connection, basically, and then putting. So it's a little bit more versatile in that regard. So, but yeah, I mean that stuff might not be that big of a deal once all these wireless but that is interesting though. I would imagine that the wireless headset, the wireless, like a TP-Cast or something that works with a Vive, would not be directly compatible with this headset. Like, I would think that the Vive and this LG prototype would require different connections in order to work with some of these wireless solutions. I could be wrong. It might be easier than I'm thinking, as far as just like creating a simple, like, little adapter or dongle that connects the two together. But my gut feeling tells me, if you have a TP-Cast for the Vive, it's not going to work for the LG headset and vice versa. That's just my... Yeah.
Well, I mean, TP-Cast is because they were in direct partnership with HTC, but there are other third-party, I guess, wireless solutions out there. I remember hearing about Rive VR, and then there was also QuiVR, which is the company that Valve was working with. So, any headset that Valve is associated with, I would assume QuiVR would try to, or at least have some type of access to servicing that.
No, that's true. So,
but we haven't heard from any of these yet. We haven't heard from any of them except for TP-Cast and TP-Cast. We still haven't heard an announcement date, because I've been waiting, but we haven't heard like a release date or a pre-order date or anything like that.
No, and I mean it's possible. Who knows that HTC also has future headsets in the works, and those are all going to be using USB rather than the old hookups, uh, and maybe this is something that's just gonna it's all of these devices are going to be a little bit different than what we're used to now. But those are just some of the things that I noticed that stood out. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see. I mean, it's good to see more and more headsets because obviously, if LG thinks it's worthwhile to release, a VR headset, then hopefully that means there's going to be more and more visibility, and this is going to bring more and more people into Steam VR. So that's a plus. I mean, on the other hand, it is kind of HTC has been doing a lot recently to try to differentiate itself, to try to bolster its own marketplace and all of that. So I'd be curious to see how that stuff all shakes out. I mean, right now, I thought at least that HTC was really, behind more of the hardware push, and obviously they're trying to get more into the soft. But maybe that's a thing. Maybe they become more and more. The Vive branding becomes more significant with the software side of things rather than the hardware. Who knows? And they try to, augment or add another layer to what's already a vibrant Steam marketplace with, Viveport and all of that stuff. So I'd be curious to see how that stuff becomes compatible with the other Steam VR headsets that are inevitably going to come out, and I mean with other developments in VR like Microsoft starting to release what they term mixed reality headsets out to developers, and virtual reality kind of hitting the Microsoft store, Windows Store in a way. Like it's interesting to see how all of these different platforms are kind of shaking out, and I mean the more I think support and more emphasis on Steam and Steam VR and the Steam VR platform, at least in my opinion, the better for this stuff because right now I think really Steam is the place to be. I think it's the best way to enjoy VR right now as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah, and I mean that's a fair point. So I'm trying to think like big picture here, because so this is a Vive podcast. So obviously I'm trying to figure out how this like affects Vive owners, but then maybe more specifically, how this affects the Vive, I guess, ecosystem, and So let me get to specifics here. The first thing I'm wondering is, let's say LG puts out this headset and it's pretty it's good enough to be compared or at least rival Oculus and HTC in terms of hardware. If they're trying to get market share, who are they pulling from? You know what I mean?
yeah, no,
who are they stealing customers from? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would think. I mean, me personally, I mean, unless they market this thing in a way different, way than HTC did with the Vive or Oculus did with the Rift, I would have to imagine it would be either people that want a slightly slicker version of the Vive. So if you have, I mean, they haven't announced anything like this, but it'd be interesting if if LG's headset was directly compatible with the Lighthouse tracking systems that came with the Vive.
Well, no, so they say that they have their own base stations. It's based on the same. Oh, yeah, you're just saying if there's compatibility, like cross compatibility.
Yeah, I know it. I know they're releasing it with everything because obviously, if you had nothing, you'd need everything. But I'm just hypothetically speaking. What if they were to release the headset minus tracking systems for people that already had Lighthouse track? I don't know that that's a likely scenario. I'm just saying, like, if that were the case, it would be more interesting for Vive owners, I think, now to look into versus having to buy. Like, I don't think if you already own a Vive and you're required to purchase a brand new system with Lighthouse trackers, new controllers, everything, the works, for another $800 or even comparable $600, whatever. I doubt most people that have Vives right now would do it. There's just really not much. I mean, for the minimal, increase in resolution and features, flipping up the headset, whatever that is provided here, I just don't see most or very many even Vive owners, making that upgrade. At the same time, though, if LG sold a version of the headset that, didn't come with trackers because some people out there already have trackers and didn't have some of these other things, and it was like a $300-400, just buy the headset itself, that's it, and use it with your, then that would be kind of appealing to some people. But
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't see them shipping it and saying like, "Oh, go ahead, use your Vive trackers," because I feel
yeah,
like they're trying to get, you know, they want people on board on the LG ship. You know what I mean? And so to me, actually, they haven't mentioned a price yet, but I feel like price point is going to be extremely important because
I agree.
Oculus started something, with what we were talking about last week, with their price drop to 600. So now you have two competing. You have two competing headsets. One which is,
And one thing we failed to mention too. I don't know if we mentioned it last week or not, but in addition to dropping the Oculus Rift's price with you can get an Oculus Rift with touch controllers for 600. You can also get the third sensor at a discount as well.
I think it's 59 now instead of 79, and these are all US dollars.
Yeah. So yeah,
No,
I
that's a
agree
good point.
with you.
I
That
don't
was
think we
pretty
mentioned
aggressive.
that. Yeah. Well, so the point that I was trying to make is that, if because right now to me, Oculus is like in its own little boat, right? Then you have Valve, which has HTC and will soon have the LG, whatever they name it as, LG's headset. So the thing is, if they decide, I mean, if they're going to try and go 800 and go head to head with HTC, I feel like HTC's just got too much momentum. They're too far ahead in the game that if people are looking at it, they're like, you know what? I'm going to go with HTC because they got accessories and trackers and it's just more refined. It's closer to version 2 than it is to version 1 and all that. But if they decide to compete price wise with Oculus, I feel like that directly cuts into the people who were going to potentially buy a Vive, because this is almost like Vive Lite, right? Okay, I want to get an HMD that isn't as expensive but has the same or similar specs, and the investment cost isn't as high. And I know,
But I mean, everything that I've seen about the LG, I mean, and granted, I don't really know the nitty gritty details on like sourcing of parts and all that kind of stuff. But like, just from looking at the prototype, it doesn't look like it's a cheap prototype. Like, it looks like it's as expensive to produce as the Vive, just from my layman's, view of what the prototype looks like. So I mean, so I totally agree with you. I would just counter by saying that if a situation like that happened, I can't see HTC not also lowering their price to match it. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, so I mean, the thing is, HTC came out with a statement after the Oculus price drop and said that they have no intention of dropping the price. I mean, whether or not they mean that, and who knows how long that'll stand for.
Yeah.
That remains to be seen. As of now, though, they're not going to drop the price. Now,
And do we know when the LG headset is like? Do we have any idea what the timetable is on a consumer release of something like that?
I have not. The most recent article I read, there was no release date and no price given.
Okay.
So, but it's being featured at GDC, or it was featured at GDC, and so that's why there's a big buzz around it right now. But there hasn't been anything. I would assume sometime this year. But if they're gonna compete with HTC, it just feels like they gotta go sooner rather than later, because as soon as HTC starts getting a lot of these accessories out there, that differentiates them quite a bit. And if like I was saying earlier, you can't compete head to head on price if you're priced the same and one is offering much more in terms of.
Well, I just wonder how much. I mean, even like, granted, I don't know the specifics on how the tracker works and how all of these, but like, something tells me if they're just accessories that work with lighthouse trackers, that all that stuff would probably work between each system. Like I don't see anything unless there's something proprietary in the software, which I doubt because it would have to be supported by Steam VR. It seems like the things that we're talking about would be like you could buy an HTC tracker and it should function just fine in an LG VR environment that's being ran by the same underlying technology. You know what I mean? Like all this stuff isn't like I mean other than I guess there is probably some software layer that's HTC specific, but like my understanding is most of like when you're running games through Steam and when you're pulling up the menu in Steam and everything relating to how the trackers work and how they're getting the controllers and the headset, all of that is just straight up Valve tech, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like it's almost like you're buying it's like buying a Dell laptop versus an HP laptop versus a like at the end of the day they all run Windows, they all run software the same, they all like if you have a Dell laptop it doesn't mean you can't buy like an HP printer and hook it up to your lap, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Okay, that makes sense.
I could be
I
wrong.
haven't heard anything
I
about
could
it at
be.
this point, and I just feel like the
Yeah,
technology is so new that
yeah,
it wouldn't be as cross compatible. I think in an ideal world that would be the case, and maybe just maybe that might be the case with this, and
yeah.
we'll have to
The
see.
only
But
reason, yeah, like I mean, I don't know the details either. The only reason I suggest that is just because they both are like they're both. It's not like we're talking like LG's coming to the scene with a completely different VR technology like Oculus did, right? Like Oculus has a different system that it's running on than Steam VR and the Vive, right? But this isn't like that. This is LG kind of hopping on board the Valve train, the Steam train, and I feel like because that's how they're coming into it. Like Microsoft, for example, is taking a different approach. Google taking a different approach. Like both of those companies, I guess, are more software companies, whatever. They're kind of bringing in their own ecosystem, their own underlying tech, all that kind of stuff, and they're partnering with their own manufacturers. Like I think Microsoft, is working on headsets with Dell and HP and Asus and like more of your typical, PC manufacturers, it seems. Whereas Valve is, at least at this point, it looks like they're working more with some of these. I mean, I guess not. Oculus was working with Samsung, obviously. And then Valve seems to be working with, a lot of the other like cell phone, like TV manufacturer, like now LG, HTC. Like I'm curious as to if there's going to be others, um, but yeah.
yeah.
So it seems like you can look at this as a direct competitor, but you can also kind of look at it as like co. I don't know, like
Well, it would seem like LG is just kind of leeching on, if that makes sense.
they are, and that's why to some extent, like on one hand, I'm interested slash kind of worried about what this could do to like HTC's current market share and all that. But on another sense, you know, like you were saying before, most people that own Vives, and I don't necessarily think that this is enough of an upgrade to really lure people away from current Vive systems, but it does get them kind of into
Well,
the
no,
game.
no. I mean, I'm not talking about current Vive owners.
Yeah,
I'm talking about those people on the fence who haven't gotten one yet.
and
And
they jump on to LG, and then and see, and so then in that scenario, I wonder. So let's say you haven't jumped in yet, you decide to go with an LG system, which again, like I feel like at least right now, considering there hasn't been a big shift in the PC space and the ecosystem there, and I still think that there's a lot of like the big you know the large number of early adopters that were really interested in virtual reality. I think have already kind of jumped in at this point. I feel like I don't know that LG's system is different enough to, if you were on the fence, be like, oh, now that it flips up, I'm totally sold. I'm gonna pick up an LG. So I wonder if this is going to be, if I mean, now it could be a completely different story if, let's say, the LG headset comes out day in, on day one with, the release of Valve's new full length games or something. Like if it came out at a time where there was a landmark, VR title also coming out in Steam or something like that, then I could see that being a problem for HTC, because all of a sudden there's a lot of people out there that, oh, I've been on the fence for a while. There's this new game that I really have to play in VR that just came out. What should I get? Should I get an HTC
but
or an LG?
if it's brand new at that point and you haven't heard the reviews, you haven't heard anything yet, I feel like people would be like, okay, there's a brand new game out. I'm about to drop way too much money on it, on a system. Like, do I get the one that's brand new and has not had as much feedback, or do I get the one that's been around and been winning awards the last, year and a half?
Yeah, no, that's true. So no, you have a point there as well. And I mean, just for the record, I don't think I speak alone when saying that, HTC has really put in a lot of money, a lot of time. Like I think they've kind of, over this past year or so, kind of proven that they really care about VR beyond just, we're, trying to get here first and, we're bringing a headset. Like, I think they're at least doing everything that they can from their perspective to really add value. I mean, Viveport and curation and, putting in money into, into supporting development and all that kind of stuff. Everything that they've done, I mean, as much as Valve's done for VR, I think at this point, HTC has also done quite a bit.
I'd agree with you on that.
So like for that reason alone, I feel like if LG and other manufacturers come into the space like we knew kind of eventually they would in some respect, it's almost better that they come in on the Steam VR platform than they do. Like, I think it's better for HTC, quite frankly, that, to some extent at least, that LG or others partner with Valve to bring headsets to this platform where HTC has leverage and has their own software and all of that, than if they were to jump on board, like a Microsoft Oculus does it. They manufacture their own, but let's say for the sake of argument that they just, further supported, their Oculus's mobile initiatives or something like that. Like, I think the fact that we have another manufacturer jumping into the the Steam VR space with Valve, I think helps HTC to the extent that they have software systems in place that, if they did open them up to other Steam VR headsets, that could be a source of revenue for them. Because, like, let's say a year from now, let's say 8 months from now, LG releases their headset, right? By that point, who knows where Viveport is at that, stage? Maybe they've, built up, a decent amount of momentum on a monthly service, and they have a lot of, they're curating titles. They're doing, even a better job than Steam in terms of getting, new games to the attention of gamers that are trying to play, the best experiences out there. Because we all know kind of Steam has some limitations in terms of how it's, to put it mildly, some limitations how people can access content. There's just so much, right? So Viveport does a good job of kind of bringing that to the surface. Let's say I could see, people picking up an LG headset if it's compatible, all that actually feeding into, the Vive ecosystem. You might have. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see how all this stuff plays out. But I'm just saying, like, having more players in the Steam VR space that could potentially use Vive's software, Vive's store, Vive's platform, as opposed to joining and bringing more momentum to some completely foreign system like a Microsoft VR platform, or Oculus or Google or something like that. Like I think it's nice to see more competition in this space.
No, I agree with you. I mean, competition is good. You want competition because that breeds innovation, that breeds just advancement amongst all sides. It's just that when something else is coming out like this, you just wonder. You want competition, but you just don't want it to knock. You don't want it to knock your horse out of the race. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And
No,
so
and-
one of the things that I just want to touch on real quick that you had mentioned earlier is HTC's kind of. I don't want to say pivot, but like their expansion into the software realm, which to me, could almost signal this type of rivalry between HTC and Valve. And I'm talking about Viveport here and the subscription service they have, and just the collection of titles that they are building up there. And so obviously they've started to build quite the collection for VR because they were and they are one of the first online places aside from Steam and the Oculus Store or Oculus Home. But I mean, if LG and other future headsets are able to go back and forth and be able to utilize stuff on Viveport, then that could definitely be a revenue stream for them as well. And I wonder if that's what HTC is trying to do with being first to market.
Yeah, it's kind of expand and really establish themselves as. I mean, like you said, look at Apple, for example. They have tons of market share with MacBooks, or for example, but they don't have to have everybody use a MacBook in order to get you using iTunes or using, what I mean? Like
That's a good point.
At some point, they decided that there's a way to, support your own hardware, but also be big enough in a certain space, be it music, like digital music or digital, video or whatnot, to also be a kind of a software platform on other devices as well. So maybe.
Yeah. Well, and this is another parallel that I kind of wanted to bring up earlier as well is the just kind of comparison. So with Oculus being more like Apple in terms of a closed ecosystem. And then you have the Android side where, for Android, there's a bunch of different companies that make phones, whether it's Samsung, whether it's Google, whether it's HTC, whether it's LG, like all these companies make phones that utilize Android software. And so, in the same way that now we have Oculus Home versus maybe Steam VR or, whatever Valve has out in a couple of years, if it's still Steam, or even just using that overall, technology and platform, now you're not just going to have HTC on there. You're going to have another big player in terms of LG, and who knows what other, headsets might pop up in the future that would be using kind of that open source technology.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So,
I think Valve's always wanted Steam VR to be open, and that's always how they've differentiated themselves from Oculus and Oculus's approach, at least, especially early on, I guess. And so, so this was kind of inevitable. I'll be interested to see kind of how it affects HTC and the Vive, given that they've, been first to market and really the only Steam VR device for this long now. I mean, I do think that that has given them quite a bit as far as a head start of understanding what VR is all about, and kind of, but we'll see, how much momentum their stuff gets versus just the general Steam VR and Steam, marketplace itself. But it's definitely interesting, and I don't know what else to say about it.
We can leave it at this for now. I mean, it's definitely going to be something for us to follow along with, as it goes along, because I am very curious to see a lot of the things that you mentioned, to see if there is cross compatibility across these platforms. Yeah. Seeing as they will both be utilizing Steam and they're both utilizing the same base station or Lighthouse technology. So there'll be quite a bit to wrap our heads around. I think once the details for the release are a little bit more concrete on the LG headset.
No, I agree. And my last point is just something that came to mind. I mean, in addition, so either A, they're thinking about becoming more of a VR software platform and, expanding that in the future, kind of, getting their stakes deep in the ground. Or, it would be interesting to see if services like Viveport became an exclusive feature for the Vive that kind of separate, so you can get, an LG lighthouse tracking system or an HTC lighthouse tracking system, virtual reality headset, whatever. But the only way you get access to Viveport is if you own a Vive. And if that service would be good enough to really compel users to decide, kind of like an iOS versus Android situation where, there's certain features about, both of them are phones, but this one lets me, use certain types of software that the other one doesn't, or vice versa.
Even having the subscription service, I think, is a big plus.
Yeah. So can you imagine
$7 a month to get access to all those titles? The thing is, for people coming in, they may not realize all the costs that add up. In terms of all the different games, early access, whatever the case might be. And again, maybe for some people, cost isn't even an issue. But I think for most people who are at least somewhat price sensitive, that is going to be a big one. And if they do close off Viveport and make it, Vive only or Vive owners only, that could probably be enough to keep people on a leash,
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, lots of questions. But either way, it's exciting stuff, and I like seeing new hardware. So it'll be fun to see how that stuff all turns out.
No, for sure. Well, it's cool to see new hardware that's going to be on par with the top line headsets out there. So we'll see. Just like when PSVR came out, and I know that's kind of like a half tier below, but when PSVR came out, there was a lot of chatter about the ergonomics and just the different things, the different benefits that it had compared to the Vive and the Rift. And it's great to see, in these, with the deluxe audio strap, with, whatever innovations they might come out with or accessories they might come out with, for them to continue to match what is leading in the industry right now. And I'm talking about HTC. So.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that was a long-winded news article. Should we just really quickly touch on the full body tracking?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I think you had looked into that a little bit.
Yeah,
I know the basics.
I just want to mention it because to me it's fascinating and it's a developing story. So we don't have all the details yet, but there's an article on Upload VR which I also saw was shared on Reddit too. But just basically talking about how HTC is going to open source the full body tracking for the Vive using the accessory. The tracker accessory that'll be coming out later this year, hopefully in a couple of months. But the article was talking about how Cloudgate Studios, who worked on Island 359, are trying to recreate this, full body representation in the game, and they basically put a tracker on both your feet and one on your waist. And in the game, that gives you kind of like a full body avatar with pretty good movement and just representation overall in terms of what you look like in the game and how you move and interact with the objects around. So we've seen some pretty good stuff so far without the trackers, and I'm just talking about upper body. So I'm thinking specifically of games like Rec Room or Smashbox Arena, where you can. The tracking of the upper body is done really well. And so what this is going to allow you to do by putting a tracker on your waist and two more on your feet, this will allow you to have that full body, I guess, just immersion in the game. So from an aesthetic standpoint, people will be able to see you and be able to see your legs moving or see whatever the case might be. But then also you're able to interact with the game. So they were testing this on Island 359, which is the dinosaur shooter, and now you're able to kick dinosaurs in the face. You're able to kind of move your feet around, and so there's gonna be that immersive element to it, which to me is really cool and really interesting. But
And really dangerous for people's TVs.
and really dangerous for anything in the real world and everything in the real world. But I'm wondering now if that's going to be worth $300 because you're going to have to buy 3 trackers just to make that happen. And to be fair, or sorry, not to be fair, but just to kind of clarify, in the article, it also mentioned that there would be I guess a multi-tiered approach. So you wouldn't need the trackers. You could still play Island 359 and any future games that decide to develop on this. You wouldn't need those trackers to play the game, but it would just allow you to have maybe a more immersive experience. And, I'm already starting to wonder what, that might fracture the user base a little bit. Just in terms of having different accessories available. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, man? $300 for full body tracking. Is that worth it?
I mean, you'd have to have some pretty cool software, like reasons to pay $300 extra. I kind of think until it becomes, like a normal part of the experience, it's probably not going to really be a major, but who knows? There could be, I'm just trying to think, like, if you're a developer really making other than just making something cool and interesting, which I guess that's kind of what all VR developers are basically doing. But I mean, you're going to be shrinking your market share. Like the number of players that are going to have that many trackers to be able to play your game is going to be so small that I don't know that there's going to probably be a whole lot of uses that come out for people that are willing to shell out the money. But I mean, I'm all for supporting cool and crazy things. And that definitely sounds like it needs to have, like, we need full body tracking in VR. I mean, we just need that. I don't know if it's going to be through having all of these different sensors. Like, I don't know if we're quite there yet in the hardware, but if they're finding ways of doing it with the trackers, then I think it's cool that people are experimenting with it. And that's only, I think that's the only way you're really going to ever find true use case scenarios where it makes sense to further develop that sort of tech for the future. Like if they're as limited as it is, if there's a 2 or 3 examples of really cool full body motion tracking that, makes a certain type of gameplay possible that's really, really exciting, then maybe that would encourage, future, hardware systems to incorporate cheaper solutions. Who knows? But that's kind of my thoughts on it anyways. Like, I think it's super cool. And if there are enough titles out that have, like, I think it's probably for even your average Vive user, it's probably one of those wait to see if the tech yields, enough software, examples of cool stuff to really be worth buying all those extra trackers.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So my thought process is what's going to convince people to get all these trackers is not released yet, is probably still in development, or maybe hasn't even started being developed. But, like you said, I think a lot of the great things that happen really come just from, very creative uses and outside the box thinking and experimentation from developers who just kind of go off on a whim. I mean, you look at a lot of like the more, I'm thinking about the games that came out in the second half of last year that were just a little bit different. They were a little off. Like they weren't, what you'd think. And we've had this conversation in regards to, the benefits of having indie developers, because, AAA titles would never look at a game like Climbey and be like, oh, there's a game there. You know what I mean?
No, VR in a lot of ways, VR is like the Wild West.
Yeah, exactly. So what's nice is the fact that this will allow, developers to hopefully find creative ways to use it. And who knows, maybe in 6 months or could be a year, 2 years, we're going to see something where it's just like, in the same way that we're looking at something wireless right now, or, the head strap or something, it's going to be like, oh, we got to get these trackers. We got to get these trackers because this game is coming out and it's a full on soccer game, or it's a full on whatever, you know what I mean? Like a kickboxing game, whatever the case might be, and it just delivers such an experience that it becomes a must have rather than a nice to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. So no, that would be super cool. Like I said, like there's the realistic side of me, and then there's the crazy, like, and I'm sure, like, man, people will find cool and awesome, crazy things to do with those tracks. So, I mean, that really, like, props to HTC for releasing the trackers to begin with, because I think just having those standalone trackers without a real, sense of what they have to be used for is such a cool way to, encourage innovation.
No, I couldn't agree more. Well, that's all I got for news, or at least what I was hoping to cover today. How about you?
Yeah. No, I think we covered a lot. So
Yeah, it's quite a bit. So let's transition over to game talk. Would you like to go first, or you want me to?
Oh yeah,
or,
sure.
You know what? Let me go first, because I feel like I'm really excited to hear your game.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
I kind of just want to. Well, this isn't fair because my game is actually pretty good too. But I want to like get the the anxiety of having to talk about my game out of the way so that I can really listen to your experience fully.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
I don't have anxiety about it. I just figured I'd go first. But so I played Skyclimbers VR, which if you've played a game like Climbey, this is very similar in terms of mechanics, in terms of gameplay. Mechanics are slightly different. There's teleportation involved. There's no jumping involved like there is in Climbey. But what this game has to offer, and it is in early access, I believe it's $11.99 now, US dollars. And what this game has to offer is a full world. And I don't know if you've had a chance to play Climb yet. Have you?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay,
actually.
so
I should have. That's on my list of titles I need to pick up. It just hasn't happened yet.
So for people who have played Climbey, you'll understand immediately what I'm talking about in terms of it's cool because it's like a very open space, but you have like you're like in the middle of space, or let's say you're floating in like a couple miles up in the air. And you're just climbing across these platforms that are just, hanging, hundreds of thousands of feet or whatever up in the air, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So your path is very like preset, predefined, and you're just jumping kind of from platform to platform, and you're in the middle of the sky. And so it's cool because it's like open in that sense, but like you have a very, like I said, predefined place, or whatever that you're trying to get to. And your route is it's just that everything that you need to interact with is there in front of you. Which is great for Climbey. I mean, Climbey, I'm not trying to bash on the game. It's actually very cool. What Skyclimbers offers though, it's not, I don't want to say polished, because I don't think that's what it's going for. It's got a very 32-bit graphic retro feel to it, where everything isn't rendered to look realistic. It looks very much like you're in a game, but what it does is you're in a full like world that you can walk around in, and that you can just kind of explore. And there's no your path is somewhat non-linear. I mean, yes, there are certain objectives you need to achieve, but you can kind of just walk around and explore this entire area. And so
that's cool.
So, and you can climb things in there. Now, of course, like a lot of these things are preset to climb. So, you're climbing trees, and you're bouncing off these little hover pads and whatever to try and get to the next area. So to me, that already was a pretty cool aspect of the game, because you're exploring this world and you're using your ability to climb to help you explore it. And, there's like, on another level or another layer, they add these like tiny little missions where you have to go and grab a key to unlock a certain like level or a certain dojo or something. And once you grab that key, you go into it, you climb up into this next dojo, and it transports you into this other world, which I guess is similar to what Climbey offers, but just in terms of aesthetics, is completely different look and feel and vibe and everything. But that's more objective based. And so, like I said, to me, it's got a different feel than Climbey. It feels much more open, much more, I don't know the word or game type that I'm looking for, but like imagine if it's like Climbey met something like, Grand Theft Auto or something where you could just kind of go around and explore what you wanted to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? What are those types? What are those types of games called? I'm
just like an
open world game.
Like,
so
yeah.
So, and of course, that's not really the case because there are certain things that you need to do. But like I said, it's more that sense of scale. It's like being transported to an actual world rather than just kind of jumping from platform to platform up in the sky.
How do they utilize like the fact that it is like a large world? Like, what are the objectives while you're in the game? So how do they, as non-linear as it is, how do they kind of focus you towards doing certain types of tasks?
So I don't know if there's much past the place that I'm in right now, but I made it past the first like area, and then you get to then you get to this open world, which is what like was really cool for me because there's like this almost like this intro level, which is quite long, and I don't want to say challenging. I mean, I made it through, but you make it to this open world where you can walk around, and I want to say there's at least 3 to 4 different like doors or paths that you can take that require you to find a key, and then you have to walk around the map to find those different keys. And so, I've found a couple of the keys so far, and then you go through and then you kind of do those challenges that are behind those doors. And again, they're not, I'm saying doors metaphorically because these are more so like you got to climb to the top of something after putting the key in. It kind of, once you put the key in, it gives you a starting place to start a certain climb, because at the end of the day, the game is still about climbing. So, but it gives you a certain starting place to do the climb. And then from there, after you've started that, you go into this extra level where it kind of transports you somewhere else, and you do this like extra challenge based on that. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's different than it's different than Climbey in that sense. It's very similar in terms of just I guess overall what the gameplay is about. I mean, it's very much focused on climbing, but I really like the real world elements where you're climbing on trees, jumping from like a tree to across the river or across something, and so it's just. It's a different feel to it. I'm not gonna say it's better or worse. It's like I said, it's both games are early access, and this one is, it's not. It doesn't feel finished, but what I like about it is the fact that it's just it's got a different feel to it. It's just got that open world nature to it. And I just kind of had a lot of fun exploring and then being like, okay, I'm ready to go on my next mission. Whereas, with the other game, with Climbey, it's more so like, okay, mission. You kind of just start from the beginning with the goal of getting to the flag at the end. So, this to me, it was just more so like taking advantage of the fact that you're in VR. You look around and you're in this almost like this canyon outdoor nature place that you can just walk around and enjoy, and then, decide to do these missions whenever you feel like it, or mess around swinging on trees or on all the different things and platforms that they have without any specific objective. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, and is it easy to jump into? Like, let's say, like, because one of the things that sounded cool about Climbey actually was the fact that, like, even though it didn't have the open world set up to it, I could imagine if you haven't played for a while and you just throw on your headset, you can just, get right in, jump into a level, get it done, have a little bit of fun, and then kind of end. Like, do they make it easy to, like, with the open world structure to be able to, kind of decide when you want to, like, have a short, fun experience and get off, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can exit out and you'll enter right back in wherever you left off last time. So that's never. Okay. Yeah, it's never been an issue. But two quick points that I want to bring up just because, or just before we move on to your game. And now I'm forgetting the first one, but the second one was So the first one is that my only I guess gripe or complaint or confusion question mark at the game was this ridiculously long intro, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to be doing something during it, but you're kind of just on a boat traveling to the main like island that you end up at, and I'm not sure what it was about. I'd love to get a take on it from the dev. No, because like it lasts, I want to say maybe 3 to 5 minutes, somewhere in that time range.
Okay.
So like the thing is like you boot up the game for the first time and you're just like, okay, I'm on this ship traveling through this tunnel and you're not sure what's going on. You see fish kind of swimming around you and like it just takes a while for the game to get there. So I don't know if that was by design. I don't know if I totally missed something, and if I did, then I'm sorry. I'm not. This isn't meant as a bash. It's more so.
It sounds like
it's just a question mark, but
I haven't played it, but it sounds like it's your journey over to the island or whatever, wherever you're.
It could be, but then it's kind of unnecessary if that's the case. But
Yeah,
maybe I missed something. The second thing though is that I did not see a multiplayer option, and so again, if we're gonna go with the comparisons from Climbey to this, I mean, I think one of Climbey's greatest strengths is the multiplayer aspect and being able to work with others to conquer levels. This is very much a solo experience, and I don't know if there will be a multiplayer option added in the future. But you know, even as a single player experience, like I said, it kind of differentiates itself in that market. So I don't want to continue comparing them. The only reason I keep mentioning both games is because of the fact that, you know, right now these there aren't many games. Like it's not like there's a whole climbing genre in VR. And I mean, maybe there is, but I haven't tried all the games yet. I feel like Climbey is probably one of the most well-known, and this seems to be another one that's differentiated itself in this space.
Got it. And I mean, not to put you on the spot, but if you did have to recommend one or the other right now for people that only are going to get one, what would you say?
That's tough.
I mean, do you think they're different enough to where legitimately people should have both? Or?
I do think that they're different enough. I won't give you a cop-out answer. I will say that at this point in time, I do believe that Climbey is just a little bit more polished. So okay. I want to give a disclaimer that the games are in early access. So it's always tough to compare unfinished products. You know what I mean? And so like it's tough for me to do that because I don't want to take away from a game that could potentially be amazing, you know? And so it just really depends on where it is in the development cycle.
And I mean if that's your recommendation, I mean it sounds like, you know, you personally go with Climbey. It's a little bit more polished. It just feels a little bit more finished to you. But at the same time, it sounds like there are advantages of picking this game up as well. Like the open world structure, and like if that sounds appealing to people out there, that might be a reason to get that over Climbey, right?
Very much so, yeah. So I mean, like I said, I don't feel like it's as finished right now as Climbey is. So
sure.
That's, I guess, my honest answer to your question. But you know, I am excited to see where it goes, and I'm glad that I have the game now because you know what we always talk about, like it's going to be really fun in what six to maybe 12 months when you know a lot of these games exit early access, and I haven't. You know, I feel like I've bought way too many VR games, but it's going to be fun to go back, you know, because it's tough for me to even keep up with these updates now because, you know, you and I, like every week we got to make sure we're trying something new so we have something to share with the audience or some insight. So, you know, I'm constantly like trying new games, making sure I get a full experience so that we can come to these episodes and really offer some value in terms of our experiences. So I don't have as much time to go back and I see like update after update after update. I'm like, oh man, okay, I'll get back to that one soon. I'll get back to that one soon. So, you know, hopefully there'll be a time and maybe we can like set this up as an episode in the future where we go back through and talk about some of the episodes, some of the updates that have come to games that we've covered in the past and how that's changed our experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is actually one. I mean, one of the fun things that I got to do was kind of go back to Space Pirate Trainer after they had added a bunch of stuff. And like, I mean, really, it's not cliche to say that. I mean, literally, some of these games, you go back to them after 2-3 months, and they're completely different experiences. They're so much more fleshed out and so much, you know. So that is another good point. I mean, anytime Zane or I are when we're talking about games, you know, we're talking about them when these episodes go up. I mean, a lot of these developers are really dedicated and really adding, you know, tons of content on a weekly or even daily basis. So that's one of the cool things about being this early on in VR is getting to see these projects, you know, kind of flower and evolve.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about, man, Ronnie, we've been doing this podcast for what, 6 months now, almost, or
I know
if
it's
not. So yeah, I mean, there's stuff that just even in that time frame, stuff that we covered at the beginning when we weren't really, when we were still trying to figure out exactly what type of format we wanted to go over with the podcast, that I'd love to be able to revisit some of those games, because I think Space Pirate Trainer, like you mentioned, is a great example where you bought this game, right when it came out, close to
on
launch.
Yeah, I got it
And
on launch actually.
and by the time I got into VR and I tried it, there was so much different, so much added to it by that time. So
Yep.
yeah, okay, we'll definitely set this up for the future. And if you guys have any games that you think have changed tremendously that we might have talked about in episodes 1 through 20 or so, that you think we should revisit, definitely let us know, because like I said, it's not overwhelming. I mean, if it's overwhelming, it's in a good way, where there's just lots of games, lots of experiences to try. So
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we're always focused on, we're forward thinking, and we're always kind of looking to see what new titles are being released to give you guys as many impressions as we can about new titles hitting the Steam store. But likewise, I mean, sometimes it's hard for us to remember, which games to go back to and whatnot. So yeah, we would love to hear from you guys if there is anything in particular that, hey, like if you haven't, went back and played this game, you should, because there's been a lot of new things kind of hitting the game the last couple months or so. So that'd be great to know.
yeah, so well, let's move on to your game, which is one that I am very excited about. We'll stop the build up, but
Sure,
you played.
yeah,
You go ahead.
Quiver. So I think I'm pretty sure the more I've looked at it, you must say it, Quiver, right? Like it's the play on it's the play on all of those the words with VR at the end of them. So it's
Well, for the purposes of this episode, let's just call it Quiver, because I don't want to say
Yeah.
QuiVR. That just sounds weird.
Exactly. Super weird. So Quiver is an early access game, I believe, and it's $20, and it is a bow and arrow, like a bow game, and it is actually very, very, very good. So I had heard amazing things. It had been kind of on my wish list for a while, and just every week I was looking at it, and the fact that it was $20, kind of and another bow and arrow game. Like I've had, I played the lab to death, longbow in there, and other game like Hollow Point, for example. Like I had a lot of bow games, so it was one of those things. Like I was like, I don't really know if I want to pick up another one of these games. I do hear it's really good, but it is kind of expensive, and I just kind of waited for a while. Eventually, I just caved in and got it, and I'm glad I did, because it is really cool. I mean, on one hand, for people out there that have a lot of wave-based shooters, this is another. I mean, it is basically a glorified version of Longbow, but it has. So it's missing some stuff that I love about Longbow that I wish it had, but then it has so many cool things about it that Longbow doesn't have that I wish it had. So like it's one of those things, like it takes an idea and really runs with it and shows you that there really are a lot of cool things that you can do with a game like this. And it kind of makes me excited for more things coming out of this developer, and also future updates with Quiver, but also what a Valve or another company could potentially do with in this VR space. Like it legitimately adds to an experience that I didn't necessarily think could be done. So basically, long story short, Quiver is all set in like this kind of snowy landscape. So that's kind of, just to be honest with you, one strike against it for me was that it was very, like, it has this one look to it, and it's always like this white kind of snowy environment amongst cliffs, and there isn't a variety to the locations. So that's a negative. Now the positive is that location, think similar to Longbow in the lab. You go back to, you're always in that same little environment. You're always shooting at the same you're always defending the castle from the little guys that are attacking it. Well, in this one, rather than being on like a single, like just being stuck in your little place on the tower, in QuiVR, you are basically in a canyon, kind of between two like cliffs. So you have your castle that you are defending against the oncoming enemies, but then rather than being stuck in one location, you can move throughout various points in this kind of canyon. And the canyon is kind of like a long, like tunnel kind of formation. And enemies are kind of spawning from different points on those mountain cliffs. And they're rushing, through this ravine in order to get to your castle to destroy it. And rather than moving just by teleporting like in most games, what QuiVR does is it ties in the bow mechanic to your teleportation. So it has these rings that are floating in the air, and in order to teleport from one place to another within this canyon, you basically shoot through the rings, and if you shoot through a ring correctly, you're now teleported to right under where the ring is. And so you're able to kind of move from place to place using like by shooting those rings. And then once you're in that place, you kind of have a 360 degree, angle to take out the enemies that are now rushing towards your castle. So that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of what you're doing. And basically, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. There's like power up items and different types of arrows and all sorts of stuff related to that. But essentially, you are, shooting enemies and preventing them from, basically, getting to your castle. And there's, other obstacles that you can earn by shooting, by amassing like headshots or whatnot in order to make it more difficult for the enemies to get to your castle. And there are there's several different enemy types. So you're not just shooting the same type. There's different types of armored enemies. There are flying enemies that, will come at your castle from, different, angles, and there's lots of stuff to do in that regard. But, that's essentially, it's the fact that you're moving around that kind of adds to the experience, I think. And another really cool thing is that the game supports multiplayer. So in addition to, just going at it alone, you can also play with several people. And that's always kind of a cool feeling because all of a sudden, rather than standing on, on your little castle, tower by yourself, you can look to your side and see, 3 or 4 other people there, shooting right beside you and taking on these hordes of enemies coming at you. And there's boss fights after after a certain amount of time where like a big powerful enemy will come at you and try to, attack you while also attacking the castle. And there's all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much what it's about. And I mean, getting to kind of what I think was, disappointing. I mean, I think it's disappointing that there's only one map and that there's really only one feel to it. And I still, having the enemies kind of blindly, rush the castle and not really have a lot of, they don't really have any kind of AI to them. They don't dodge your arrows or anything like that. Maybe that would be way too hard to play anyways, but those are some of this is still kind of like a wave-based shooter in that regard. And there's limited, environment types, but then, and the other thing I should say that I kind of wish it had is I kind of wish it, with longbow, when you shoot your enemies, you really get that strong sense of feedback from when you hit the enemies. They kind of shatter, and they shatter in such a way where it really feels like it's being affected precisely by your arrow. And with these enemies, I feel like sometimes they don't fully react, the way that, to the arrow that, is as satisfying as a game like Longbow. So those are some of the things that I kind of wish that it was able to implement a little bit better from other experiences that I played. But then as far as what it does right, and it does a lot right, the feel of the bow feels right. Your aiming feels right. Like it definitely feels like, you can really pull that arrow back and really get a strong shot off that feels satisfying. And I really like how the teleportation works with shooting with the shooting mechanic. Like, I think that's a brilliant idea of incorporating the shooting into the teleportation, so you're not just, you don't feel like this overpowered just zipping around the environment, boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. Like this, it's tactical. When you want to move from one location to another, you really have to decide whether, like, you're making a trade off when you do that, because it's going to take you, like, it takes you, a decent shot in order to travel back to where you were previously if you end up needing to switch positions again. So it's not like you can just instantly teleport. It's, you once you move, you should be moving in order to really take out a few enemies, and then you're going to need some time to line up your shot, shoot the ring and get back to the other location if need be. So that's another thing is, like, I just think all that stuff is handled really well. And the multiplayer was really cool. I felt like we legitimately were able to get through a lot more enemies with friends and with people there. Like, I felt like I was able to really, like, it felt similar to like a horde mode in that regard. Like, if people out there played like Gears of War or other types of games where, it's you and friends versus, the AI enemies. It felt like that in a good way, where, you were able to really take on, quite a bit more odds when you had other people there by your side. And just the last thing, I mean, I haven't really gotten into it. I feel like some other people might get into it more than me. But there is, like, there are different items that you can equip in the game to strengthen your character, and, different arrow types and all that kind of stuff. So if you're into kind of, specking out and your player type and all that sort of thing, the developers are adding that stuff in. It sounds like at a pretty steady clip. So that's all there. It's a pretty deep experience. So I mean, for people out there that don't have a lot of wave based shooters, I think it's an easy recommendation. And for people that just in general like bow and arrow mechanics, I think this one is very solid, and it is a lot of fun. It's not perfect, but it does certain things that I haven't seen done quite as well as this in other titles. So.
Gotcha. So this actually kind of brings to mind a game I got a while back, and I don't think I ever even talked about it on the podcast. But have you heard of Elven Assassin?
I've heard of it, yeah.
So
but I don't know that I've played it.
So I got it right after, I guess just shortly after getting my Vive, because you can only play so much of longbow. Game is amazing, but after a certain point, I kind of tap out and keep losing at the same level, and so I was just looking for something else that had a little bit more, or that could give me more of that archery gameplay. So I got longbow and sorry, not longbow. I got Elven Assassin at the time, and I didn't care for it because the mechanics I don't want to say they were worse, but they were different than what longbow was. And after spending so much time in longbow, I just felt like my aim was totally off because I had to aim either higher or lower than I normally did. And just the reflexes were a little bit different. But the gameplay was very similar to what you mentioned, where there was, I'm sorry, I'm speaking in past tense when I shouldn't be. There is a multiplayer option, and I remember playing multiplayer one time, or actually one time back then, and it was really fun. It's just that there wasn't really a player base after that. But they had like two different levels, and it's set in medieval times, so you're fighting against these orcs, and so it wasn't a perfect game, and that's not even what I meant to say. It was, I didn't care for it, honestly, when it first came out, but it's made a little bit of a resurgence. And the last couple times that I've gone in, and when I say last couple, it might have been like a month ago, there were more people in there. There were more gameplay elements. There were more things in there that just reminded me of what you were talking about, because like that game had that what's that called? That teleportation where you can move to different areas of the map or the defense area by shooting at them. It didn't have like predefined like rings or something as designated as that, but it just sounds like something super similar. So I'm wondering maybe what the comparison is between those two games. But this sounds pretty cool. And I mean, were there people in there every time that you went, or did it seem like there were a good amount of people in there for the multiplayer?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about it is you can kind of just play on your own while it finds people for you to play with.
Oh, really?
So,
okay, that's a huge one.
Yeah, so literally, I mean, if you decide to play multiplayer rather than single player, you can just start shooting the enemies and everything, and as people join, you just get more. Like I said, like pretty soon after I started playing, I had one person in there with me, and then soon after that, I think I had two more. I'm pretty sure there were 4 people total when I was playing, and it was a lot of fun. We did well, and it was just kind of cool to see. One thing I noticed, I don't know if this was just the group that I was playing with, but no one seemed to be able to speak with each other. So that was kind of a downside, because most games that I play multiplayer, I like talking to people in.
Yeah, that is a strange. I mean, because in order to strategize and stuff like that, like I said, so my experience, and the only reason I'm bringing up this other game is because I feel like the experience is somewhat parallel. But I mean, that was probably one of the most fun parts. Like after playing it multiplayer, I couldn't really go back to playing it single player because it wasn't as fun. Like it was not that it was more difficult, but it was more difficult. But it wasn't as fun. There wasn't as much collaboration. There wasn't like, okay, I'll take the right, you take the left, or okay, aim for the big guy, or you know what I mean? Like there's just.
No, I have a feeling like I think it's weird that people weren't taught, because I mean, obviously everybody with a Vive has a microphone. So like I wonder if it was just the people that I was playing with, but I literally tried waving at people and saying, "Hey, like how's it going? Like, can you hear me?" And people were
they just ignored you,
going about their business. Yeah, but
well, I mean, you got to defend the castle. That's the most important.
That's what I mean. Clearly, I wasn't doing. I wasn't pulling my weight.
You weren't showing your commitment to the cause, Ronnie.
I know. They were just looking at me like, "What is this guy doing?" But yeah, so. Cool, anyways, man. Yeah.
Well, it's always cool to see different archery games that come up. I feel like Longbow really set a great precedent for that type of experience in VR. And so I'm always excited to hear about new games in the archery realm. So this will be something I definitely look into. And is it still in early access, or I feel like
it is. And that's why I don't want to be too hard on it, because realistically, I mean, I think it came out in late December, so it hasn't been out that long. And I mean, who knows what they're really... I heard, just based on the comments, like in the Steam reviews, it does look like the developers have been adding quite a bit to it. And I wonder if it's only a matter of time if, additional environments aren't added or something like that. That was really the only knock on it, like, that I could see, was that it would just get a little bit old being in that same exact, snowy environment all the time. If you're going to go back to it time and time again. I mean, otherwise, I mean, the mechanics are solid and everything feels good. And yeah, it's a cool one to pick up. So
awesome, man. Well, I mean, cool stuff. So that's all I have for this week in terms of game talk. How about you?
Yeah. No, that's it for now.
Cool. Well, I'd love to be able to go back and rediscover some of those older games, but we'll see. We'll find a good time for that. I'm thinking maybe in a couple months. Once actually, I don't know why I'm saying even a couple months, but once we have some time, maybe like once there's some updates, some like major updates to some of the games, or maybe like a game, a major game leaves early access at some point. That would be a good time to go back and readdress that. So we'll keep an eye out.
Yep, sounds good.
So, all right, guys. Well, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course on YouTube. So make sure you connect with us there. We're just trying to help build the VR community. So until next time, we will catch you guys all again very, very soon. Take care.